Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Lift and Yap. This week I have a guest apparently, and today I want to go over the most common mistakes I see when it comes to S&C programs, whether that's athletes writing for themselves or ones that you see online. So the first most common issue I see is people turning everything into a circuit. So they're doing their strength work, they're trying to do their power work, and they're doing their conditioning all in one go. And really the reason that doesn't work is because it all becomes dependent on one thing, and that is your conditioning. So what basically ends up happening here is everything becomes limited by your level of conditioning. So you can't get the required speed that you need for your speed exercises, you can't get the required intensity you need for your power exercises, and you definitely can't get anywhere near enough weight on the bar that you need for your strength exercises either. You see quite a lot from combat sports S&C where they put everything together to make it like kind of simulate what you do in a fight or something along those lines, which, as I said, doesn't really make any sense because you just end up getting only cardiovascular adaptation from it, and you don't get any stronger, you definitely don't become any more powerful, and you don't get any speed adaptation either. What much better doing is just splitting these things up. You can still have them in the same session, they just shouldn't be done back to back. That way you're going to get a much better strength adaptation, much better power adaptation, much better speed adaptation, and then you can still do your cardio stuff at the end. The next most common issue I find is people putting like no thought into their weekly structure. Or it's not even really no thought, it's just like they pick up weekly structures from bodybuilding and like gym bro stuff that doesn't really apply to S&C. So an example of this would be like push-pull legs, where this might be a good split for making you stronger and bigger, but it's going to leave you knackered when it comes to training and games, and it's going to put far too much volume into stuff that doesn't necessarily transfer as much as you would like into actual sports. And it's probably also going to have a little bit of a negative adaptation in terms of speed as well, because if you're using that bodybuilding split, the chances are that you're using a bodybuilding type of training where everything's slow, everything's close to failure. And as I said, that's just really not going to transfer that well when it comes to sports. So a much better way to plan out the week is to use something like the high-low method, where you're allocating days either a high or a low day, and you're trying to space the high days out. So a high day might look something like a full body session and your sports training, and then a low day might look something like some easy conditioning and a bit of skills work. And this works so well because it allows you to get a full rest in between these high sessions and then still keep ticking over with the low sessions. It also means you can plan out when you're most likely to be fatigued, and put in those low sessions so that when you get back to the high sessions you're nice and fresh. So the next biggest mistake I see is when athletes think about using muscles rather than movements. So they go in and they decide, today I'm going to work X muscle and Y muscle. And what that basically does is it gives you like a huge amount of exercises to do. So if you decide you're going to work your quads, you're also going to work your hamstrings, you're also going to work your delts, you're also going to work your chest, you're also going to work your lats. Like, suddenly you in your head, you're picking out 5 or 6 different exercises. Whereas if you think of things in terms of movement patterns, so a hinge, a squat, and then you're also looking to tick off both a vertical and a horizontal push and pull. This ticks off loads of major muscle groups, and then you can use accessories to fill in gaps where you feel that you're not really getting what you should be. This can lead to much more concise programming and a much easier way to make sure that you're hitting everything that you should be. Another huge mistake I see is athletes not doing any sort of sprint or power work. So if you're an athlete that does a sport that requires power or sprinting, which most sports do, especially power, you need to be doing something in the gym to facilitate improving that. So you can't just go in and always be doing heavy weights all the time, because as much as you might get stronger, past a certain point you're not going to get any more powerful. So you need to be doing your plyos, Olympic lifts, loaded jumps, anything that requires you to produce a lot of force very, very quickly. That's going to be something that's going to help improve your power. And doing these a couple of times a week is going to make a huge difference when it comes to your overall athleticism. And then if you're a field sport athlete, as I said, you need to be doing some sort of sprinting. Again, doing this once or twice a week, if you're someone who's not particularly fast, is going to make a massive difference as well. And the last one is thinking more in terms of sport specificity rather than individual specificity. And what I mean by that is going into the gym and trying to replicate your sport and do things that will improve you specifically at your sport, rather than things that will help plug gaps in terms of you as an athlete. So a good example of this is like combat athletes going into the gym and they're doing like the banded punch or like the landmine punch, rather than just power exercises that every athlete can do, whether that's trap bar jumps or Olympic lifts or something like that. So they're thinking more in terms of what will get them better at their sport, rather than things that are just going to help them improve as overall as an athlete, which is really what you should be doing when you're trying to program your S&C. What they should really be doing is looking at themselves, trying to find their strengths and weaknesses. So they might think, okay, I'm pretty strong, I've got decent amount of power, but my cardio is really lacking. So we tailor the program to that. We put a little bit of volume into the things that they're pretty good at, and then the things that they're not so good at, we attribute a little bit more volume there. And it's just trying to get them out of the habit of thinking, what is sport specific and think more in terms of what is individual specific. So yeah, hopefully you have appreciated this video, guys. It's taken me about 7 attempts of trying to video it. In fact, this might be about the 10th time I've tried to video this. So yeah, hopefully there's been some information in there that has been useful to you, something you might have taken away from the video. If you've got any questions, just put them in the comments below. There is still 30 days of free S&C emails in the description, and there's also a free off-season and a free in-season program in the description as well, actually. So yeah, check those out if you're interested, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers!